Hey class, Mr. Coates here. Thank you guys for your participation in the lessons already. It's been good to see that you guys are working on prepositional phrases and continuing to learn even remotely. Thanks also for doing the video lessons. I know that it's not necessarily as fun as personal connection with somebody you know. But sometimes it's better to use something that someone else has done well already. There are people who had already done some good videos on prepositional phrases out there, rather than for me to reinvent the wheel and do the same thing over again. But today's lesson, I didn't feel like I saw anybody online who'd really addressed this kind of the way that I wanted to address it. So I wanted to jump on here and do that personally with you. And I will be doing that from time to time, jumping on, and you get to see me and have kind of a lesson with me rather than with some stranger who runs a YouTube channel. So I run a YouTube channel, not regularly, but for distance learning now, I am running a YouTube channel, but I'm not a stranger, hopefully. So let's get started talking a little bit about prepositional phrases as adjectives and adverbs. So you've been learning about what a prepositional phrase is, and you've been learning about the different parts of prepositional phrases. So you've learned about the preposition and the object of the preposition, and then you have worked on identifying prepositional phrases and all that kind of stuff. So today I want to talk about what does a prepositional phrase do. Now, one of the videos mentioned, and the Schoolhouse Rock song also mentioned, that they connect things, right? And that is very true. But they also play another function in the sentence as adjectives and adverbs. And that, I think, is very pertinent to our discussion going forward. After we talk about prepositional phrases, we're going to be talking about all the building blocks of the sentence and how a sentence gets constructed and put together. That's really the focus of this quarter, is how do you structure a sentence? And then we'll be doing some writing stuff as well. Let's talk a little bit today about prepositional phrases and their use as adjectives and adverbs. They are used as connecting pieces. Yes, they connect one thing to a noun, to the object of the preposition. They do that connection. They also are always functioning as either an adjective or an adverb. So we're going to look at that here today. All right, so before we dive into looking at prepositional phrases as adjectives and adverbs, I want to have a brief discussion about what adjectives and adverbs are. For some of you, this may be a little bit of review, but maybe some of you haven't really talked about adjectives and adverbs before. So this is a quick overview of what adjectives and adverbs are and what they do. In simple, they are describing words, and adjectives are used to describe a noun. So you remember we talked about earlier this year, nouns are people, places, things, and ideas. So adjectives are words that are used to describe those nouns. So let's take a look at an example of some adjectives. In this sentence, Timothy ate the delicious red apple. All right, we've got a couple nouns in here that could be described by adjectives. And so we've got Timothy, which is the subject of the sentence, and we've also got apple. All right, now, there's nothing describing Timothy. There's nothing telling us more about who Timothy is or what he's like or what he looks like or anything of that nature. But we do have a couple descriptive words that describe the apple. Both red describes the apple and the word delicious describes the apple. And they both describe different things about the apple, right? So they're different categories, so you notice we don't have a comma in here because they're coming from different categories. Delicious is describing the taste, and red is describing the color. Right, so that's the essentials of what an adjective is, right? It is a word that describes a noun. Now, this is a very simple example. Obviously, you're going to have far more complex sentences in both your writing and in the things you read, but this gives you a basic idea of what an adjective does so that we can talk about prepositional phrases as adjectives. All right, now all adjectives answer a question about the noun that they're describing. And this is how you can kind of determine that something is an adjective, is figuring out what is it describing about the thing, or the person, or the idea, or the place. So these questions are kind of important to helping you determine what word is an adjective and what is it doing in the sentence. So an adjective could be answering the question, which one? Right? So, for example, with our last sentence, Timothy ate the delicious red apple. Which red apple? The delicious apple, or the red apple, right? Both of those words are just telling us which apple. What kind? Those words, delicious and red, could also maybe answer the question, what kind of apple, right? The delicious kind of apple, the red kind of apple. So both of those questions our adjectives could have been answering for the word apple. Now, one that they were definitely not answering, but that an adjective could answer, would be how many or how much, right? So if you had a sentence that said many people, many is an adjective describing people because it's telling how many of them, right? If you had $75, 75 is an adjective describing how many dollars, right? 3 liters water, 3 liters is describing how much, right? So how many, how much could describe a noun, and so therefore it is an adjective question, right? How many or how much, also which one and what kind. And lastly, whose, like as in who does it belong to. So possessives are a type of adjective. We talked about possessives when we talked about apostrophes last quarter. So if I say Samantha's car, Samantha's is an adjective telling us whose car. So these 4 questions, which one, what kind, how many or how much, and whose, are adjective questions. So if a word is answering one of these questions, it's most likely an adjective. All right, let's do a quick overview on adverbs, and we're going to go back to Timothy and the apple, right? So adverbs are another describing kind of word, and they describe a verb. That is the description that's going on here. So nouns describe, adjectives describe nouns. Adverbs typically describe verbs. There are a few cases in which adverbs could describe adjectives or other adverbs, but we'll get to that later when we talk about adverbs themselves. But the basics are that adverbs are generally describing verbs. So let's look at an example of an adverb. In this sentence, Timothy ate the apple slowly. All right, so here we have one verb, ate. And so if we have an adverb here, we are probably going to have it describing that verb, ate. And we do have an adverb. We have the word slowly, which is telling us something about how he ate the apple. In what manner did he eat the apple, right? He ate it slowly. So that's describing that verb. Adverbs also have a set of questions that they can answer. So there are a number of questions that if you're looking at a word and you're saying, what question does this word answer? And it answers one of these questions, it's most likely an adverb. The first of these is how. That is the one that we just saw in our example. Timothy ate the apple slowly. How did he eat the apple? He ate it slowly. So slowly is something that answers the question how. That's an adverb that answers the question how. Another one is when, and you may remember from some of the prepositional videos that this is one of the things that prepositional phrases can show, is when, right? When something happened. Where. Direction was another thing that the preposition video so far emphasized, and so where is another thing that that the adverbs can describe. So an adverb prepositional phrase could describe where. A one-word adverb could also describe where. But it's important to remember that where is describing the verb, not necessarily the object. All right. Why? Adverb could describe why something happened, right? So keep that in mind as well. Not likely that a prepositional phrase would do that, but another kind of adverb could. And then to what extent, okay? So this, to what extent, that basically means like, how far did something go, right? Or how much did you do it? So an example of this might be if you said, I frequently go to the movies. Frequently is answering to what extent, how often, how much do you do that? So that's kind of that question, to what extent do you do that thing? All right, so prepositional phrases function as either adjectives or adverbs. Yes, they are connectors. Prepositions are connectors connecting that object of the preposition to something else in the sentence. But prepositional phrases always function as either an adjective or an adverb. So we're going to look at some examples of that here. All right, let's look at this sentence. The dog with the yellow collar chewed on the old bone. Simple sentence. You actually have a couple prepositional phrases in here if you're paying attention. We're going to look specifically at this one, with the yellow collar. All right, so the dog with the yellow collar. That is a prepositional phrase that's been being used as an adjective, because this whole prepositional phrase with the yellow collar is describing which dog, which one, right? That's one of the adjective questions. And so this prepositional phrase is answering that question, which dog? But it's not a one-word answer, right? You have to take this whole prepositional phrase together to answer the question, which dog, right? I can't take the words individually. It wouldn't make any sense, right? The yellow dog, well, look at our picture. This is clearly a Dalmatian, not a yellow dog, okay? So that would be incorrect. The collar dog, there's no such thing as a collar dog. The dog, that doesn't really make any sense. The with dog does not make any sense either. So it's important to remember that a prepositional phrase serves as an adjective in its entirety. The whole prepositional phrase functions as an adjective. All right, so this whole prepositional phrase with the yellow collar is describing which dog, and it's functioning as an adjective describing that noun. Now, if you were paying attention, you noticed that there's another prepositional phrase here, on the old bone. This one is functioning as an adverb. I'm going to give you another adverb example in a minute, but this one is functioning as an adverb describing how the dog chewed. He chewed on the old bone. All right. Oh, I forgot to change the title on this. So this should say prepositional phrase as an adverb, not as an adjective, because this is going to be an adverb example. My mistake. You'll have to forgive me for that. So I'll give you a second, see if you can identify the prepositional phrase in this sentence. All right, hopefully you spotted that it was to the mall. That the prepositional phrase here is to the mall. All right, now this prepositional phrase, think in your head, or you can talk to me, although I won't hear you through the recording, but you could answer me verbally if you want to. What is this prepositional phrase describing? All right, so hopefully you recognize that this is describing where he went. So that's an adverb question, where. So that means that this is an adverb prepositional phrase. We'll go ahead and cross this out here and say, oh, my drawing with this little pen is very bad. Actually, my writing, my arrows are okay, but my writing with it is awful. Okay, hopefully you're entertained by how awful that word adverb looks, but it's an adverb, not an adjective. So this is answering the question where, and it's describing where he went, right? So it's modifying the verb went to the mall. All right, so obviously, and you already saw this in one of our examples, it's possible to have multiple prepositional phrases in the same sentence. Sometimes they will function as the same thing. Sometimes they will function as both adjectives or both adverbs and describing the same word, as is the case in this example. My uncle went to the mall with my aunt. So this is describing where he went, and then this one is describing how he went. So he went where? To the mall. He went how? With my aunt. So you could see in this scenario, you have two prepositional phrases functioning to describe the same verb. So they're both functioning as adverbs describing the same verb. Of course, we already saw one example of this. Here's another example of two prepositional phrases functioning in different ways. So the first prepositional phrase you have here with the yellow collar, like before, is describing the dog. And then, like before, into his crate is describing where he climbed. So it's functioning as an adverb. So adjective and adverb prepositional phrases in this sentence. And as one of the videos talked before, you can actually have a lot of different prepositional phrases in your sentence to really describe something and create a more visual image in your reader's mind. So it's important to look out for these prepositional phrases and to be paying attention to them and what they describe, because they do play a function in the sentence. As was said in one of the previous videos, the subject of the sentence is never going to be in a prepositional phrase. However, the prepositional phrases are playing an important role as adjectives and adverbs in the sentence, describing nouns and verbs. All right, so it's time to do some practice. I'm going to have some practice exercises up and some instructions for you to complete those. So make sure you go and do those, and those will be due by midnight on Tuesday. So practice them, pay attention to how prepositional phrases are being used as adjectives and adverbs, and email me or call me if you guys have any questions. All right, see you guys later.